Yep. Yeah, I know. They said shave, and I said, yeah, so I did. I shaved yesterday, and this happened. I don't know. Today we're making champ. St. Patrick's Day. Champ. You know what champ is? Champ is basically, it's a traditional Irish dish. It's mashed potatoes with scallions and lots of butter and a little bit of milk. I'm upgrading the milk to heavy whipping cream. And I'm going to mutate the traditional recipe a little bit, but there are so many champ recipes. It's okay. It's okay to play around with that. So St. Patrick's Day here in America, it's corned beef, cabbage, and potatoes, and it's a great. It was one of my favorite meals as a kid. I loved that meal. Uh, so it's why is it not really the way they do it in Ireland? Because in Ireland on St. Patrick's Day, they're doing things like lamb stew and salmon and potato dishes. Colcannon, which is kind of a chunkier mashed potato with cabbage mixed into it, and nowadays they're putting kale into it. Wonderful. So there's variety. And there's a lot of argument about how to do it, all the techniques. It's kind of like scrambled eggs. It's like there's a million ways. People say, oh, you can't, you've got to put the salt in first or put the salt in last. If you're paying attention to these types of things, and as you go, you kind of go, yeah, it needs a little bit more of this, a little more of that. It's okay. So you don't need to freak out about it. I'm not freaking out about it. Well, I kind of am. But champ, what a great name for a dish. It's actually from an old, I believe it's a Gaelic term, which was similar to chomp or chew, but it's been retired kind of out of the language as languages evolve. So, but I just love that name, and I love making this, and I love St. Patrick's Day, and it's nice to have, as you're cooking this, you'd have a Guinness. You can have two because Guinness is only 4.8. Budweiser is 5.0 on the ABV. So you can have a few Guinness while you're doing it. And I'm going to show you how to do this. And it's just so great. This is what U2 eats before they go on stage. Bono, The Edge. That's not true. They don't eat this. Anyway, let's get into it. It's champ. Okay, so we start peeling the potatoes. It's a little over 3 pounds. Peeling it into, those are also very well scrubbed because I was thinking of maybe using the skins, and I actually did. And you see that little hinky piece, on the side of your peeler? There's that little guy that can get those out. A lot of people don't know that that's on peel. It's on every peeler, so you can kind of scoop out if there's a little. Oh, just dropped it. Oop! I only dropped it once. Not bad. That colander, I purchased that in Chinatown in San Francisco in 1985 for $1, and I've used that ever since. It's my favorite. It's a cheap plastic green colander, and I love him. He's been with me. He's my guy. So this is one of those things where you could choose to edit this more, but I think there's something kind of meditative to watching speed peeling. It's good. I like peeling potatoes. This is going to take, well, there's only about an hour of this, so don't worry, it's fine. But we're doing a good job here. Me and the little cheapo peeler. Those things also, that's like one of the cheapo peelers. They're the best. Those ones, I can't remember the brand of that one. So now we're going to cut the potatoes, and the deal with what you want to do is uniform. So I just do the half, and then quarter, and then the eighth. And you want to make them as much the same size as possible so that when you simmer them, you don't have bigger ones than little ones, and they cook unevenly so that some are overdone and some are underdone. So as best you can, try to get that good half and that quarter and that eighth. And I'm doing a half. I'm doing like probably a B plus job here, because when you're videoing food, you're kind of thinking about the shot, you're not necessarily completely with the food. So it's kind of like, it's a Heisenberg principle. The observation changes it. You soak them in cold water for, I don't know, soak them like 20 minutes, rinse them a few times, soak, and that gets rid of some of the starch so that they end up less gummy. And then back into my favorite little colander, drain them really well, and then you put them into a simmering water that you want to generously salt that, and I'm using a really good French sea salt. It looks like a lot of salt, but this is, as you'll see in the end, I almost didn't need to really add hardly any salt at the end, which is kind of usually you do, as just kind of a general rule. Add a little stir, incorporate that salt, and then simmer them down. But you want to be careful not to overcook them. So you want to get them just at the point where you test them by you get a spider. We'll show that in a little bit. And here's the scallions. So the way I like to do is cut down the middle of that white part, and then I like to cut it on a bias, so you get that shape, kind of like that shape, better than just going straight across. It's just a little preference because it looks good, you know. I'm gonna cut those ones up too. Yeah, why not? Scallions. That piece got thrown out unceremoniously, but I actually brought him back. There's another piece I threw out, but I brought him back. We waste nothing. So, and here's our pound of butter, and that's Irish butter, actually. It's really good. I don't know if I'm going to say the name brand, but you probably recognize it. So the ratio is generally 3 pounds of potatoes to 1 pound of butter. That's kind of the way you do it to get that incredible kind of creamy, rich flavor out of your mash. Wouldn't it be great if butter melted that fast ordinarily? And I'm adding a little bit of heavy whipping cream, and I'm not worried about the fact that it's gonna kind of like break, because that's like, oh my God, what are you doing? Because we're mashing this. I'm just doing that because then you don't have to add them separately. There's no point, because you're literally just mashing it, and it's not going to make any difference. And this is for ease. So that's a pound of butter and maybe about a half a cup of heavy whipping cream. So you test your potato. You want the fork. Just get a paring knife. It should go in. Needs probably about 3 more minutes, which it got. And you drain them, and you start mashing them, and it's a good little workout. And then you add little bit by bit. I think 4 in fourths your butter and heavy whipping cream, and you start getting that in there. And as you can see, the color starts getting golden. So we're not getting super white mash. We're getting a golden thing. A second pour, and yeah, this is what you want to do. It's one of the best things ever. And when you serve this to your guests, it's one of those things really where you take a bite and you see people, they'll close their eyes, or their eyes will kind of roll back, and they'll go, oh my God. And there's a lot of recipes for champ. Sometimes people use peas, just the ones you get in the freezer, which is really great, kind of like but you don't really mash them. You could. That would be a little bit, you don't want to add mushy peas to this, but you could. And it would be great, because peas and potatoes are buddies. So that's looking pretty good, and you could switch to a whisk once it gets to the cream. I just kept going with that just because I was just fixated on it. And so that's looking like we're getting close. It's almost time to add our scallions, and then we're basically done. Then you taste it,
to check if you need a little pinch of salt, and I always add a little black pepper at the very end too, just for good luck. You just gently fold in your scallions. You don't have to, it's mixed, so you just kind of fold them in so it looks like that. And here's the test. Yeah, it's good. It's like, if you salt the water enough, sometimes you don't even have to add salt at the end. Here's a crack of pepper, which you need. You could use white pepper too, a little bit too, which kind of gives it a nice little bite. I like white pepper in this. I didn't do it in this video, but, and get a nice bowl. That's a bowl from the early 60s. It's got some chips in it, but I love that pattern. So put it in a bowl that you like, make a little well. This is the traditional way to do it. And another pat of butter that this will melt in there. And you finish it with a little chopped parsley. And that's it.
Okay, well, so that's how you make champ, or that's one version of how you make champ. And it doesn't just have to be for St. Patrick's Day. You could make this every day of the year, and you could have a huge bowl of it, and you'd become huge. But you'd become powerful. You would become a champion, because the more champ you eat, the more you become a champion. This is what Bono has for breakfast. This is what Michael Flatley has for breakfast. Remember Riverdance? Riverdance, Feet of Flames. How did he do that? How did he dance so great? He ate tons of champ. I'm not kidding. He's a good friend of mine. So subscribe, join us, and we're going to do more recipes like this because it's just, this is the way you do it. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I certainly didn't. This took knowledge away from me because I've had too many carbs. Anyway, see you next time.